You're listening to the Luminate series on the Forward Faster podcast, providing bite-sized insights for entrepreneurs in the optics, photonics, and imaging sector.
So we've all heard of fitness trackers, body-mounted sensors for measuring data related to your health. Chances are good if you're listening, you might even own a smartwatch. But what about wearable tech that can bend and twist with your movement? If you're an athlete, Organic Robotics light lace technology can measure your muscle activity, and that can help improve your performance and even prevent injuries. I'm Kate Leonard. I'm the Digital Marketing Manager at NextCorps. I'm here today with Organic Robotics Corporation's co-founders, Ilayda Samilgil and Dr. Robert Shepherd, to learn more. Ilayda and Rob, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us, Kate.
First, let's just start off. Tell us about the technology. I know that you were a member of the Luminate accelerator, so there's an optics photonics component there. But in simplest terms, can you just explain how does light lace work?
So light lace is a soft and stretchable fiber that uses light to measure motion and touch information. And we translate that information to biomechanics and when it's actually on an athlete. So what we do is we shine light through these fibers, we measure the intensity change on the other end. And when you stretch them or when you press on them, there's a change in intensity. So when an athlete wears these fibers in the form of a compression garment, we can tell how they're moving, we can tell their joint angles, we can tell how their muscles are changing in shape, we can tell how they're breathing. So there's really a lot of information we can provide them in real time and at really high speeds because it's an optics-based technology like you briefly mentioned earlier.
So I want to know a little bit more about what that outcome looks like for someone who's, say, a coach or a trainer. Are they just presented with a whole bunch of data on screen? You said that it's real time, which is probably super valuable for them. So what does that look like?
We provide them valuable insight, actionable data. So it's going to be more like, oh, your player's arm is getting tight. Let's say tricep is getting tired at this moment while doing this motion. And then we'll also have information such as this is how they were moving earlier today. This is how they were moving and how their muscles were reacting to that specific motion last week. And they're not doing it exactly the same way now. And over long term, we can also provide information like fatigue and fatigue threshold where it can cause an injury. So you'll have like information on when you need to be stopping that motion so that you don't get injured. But for teams and for training stuff, we also want to just provide them with the raw data as well, so that if they want to do their own analysis that they don't want to share with other teams, so they have like competitive advantage, they can do that as well. So there's going to be two sets of information we provide them with.
That's very cool. And it sounds like it'd be extremely valuable for people, not just your everyday athlete, although I'm sure that someone who's running a marathon or maybe just wants to improve on their own, that'd be valuable. But for these high-end elite athletes who it really does matter, every movement matters. When they get tired, it matters. If they have an injury that they're trying to prevent or work on, it matters. I'm wondering about that target audience though. I know that Light Lace, congratulations, has received a ton of coverage. You recently won the NFL's First and Future competition for all of your benefits towards football players and athletes and their trainers. Was this always your target audience, or who were you going after with Light Lace?
So if we look at the wearables market specifically, we want to start with professional level athletes just because, like you said, every little movement or every little change in their muscle matters a lot. And there's really no good way to measure that right now. And that's where we believe our value lies in. Long-term goal, we do want to work with college level kids, middle school, earlier, or average consumer, because a lot of people are trying to make it to the pro level. And the more information they have, the more likely they'll be working out correctly and the more likely they'll be able to reach their goals. But also even for average consumer, like during quarantine, everyone was like taking photos before, after, just like, this is how much I worked out, this is how big of a difference. But we can actually measure that difference. You don't have to rely on cameras. We can actually show you that difference. We can provide you the information. But if we go before wearables, we did look into different markets for our light lace sensors, like virtual reality applications. We looked into automotive applications, healthcare, robotics. So there's a lot of information light lace can provide and a lot of value in different markets as well, not just biomechanics and wearables. We decided to go with wearables just because it is the correct time to be in this market. And we think our short-term value is most valuable in this market. But long-term, we do want to be providing light lace fibers in different market verticals as well, where pressure and touch information going to be valuable.
I think it's great that you brought up the whole, during the pandemic, people kind of posting results, because I do think that while some people have put on maybe the pandemic 15, other people have really taken that opportunity to make some changes. And it's awesome to think about someone having a tool other than just looking in the mirror maybe and taking a picture. So I understand that light lace is actually not in the field just yet, but I was wondering if you could tell us where you're at with commercializing and what kind of feedback you've gotten so far.
Yeah, so we have been interviewing lots of stakeholders in sports and sports science, learning what they would like to have, what they don't have, and also the limitations on what we could do by what players want in a form factor, which is basically invisible. So how do you make a sensor that can provide information like accelerations and decelerations for specific joint angles when a player doesn't want to wear anything at all? And so these are severe constraints, and it explains why there aren't really any good choices for wearable biometric monitors in field today. So, but with that, we have converged on a band that can be stretched and placed anywhere, on a thigh, on your chest, on your biceps, around your elbow. And then that allows the sports scientists that we are working with to test it how they see fit, and then develop algorithms they think are important. And then we can co-develop our technology and signal processing with them at a much faster pace.
We got some feedback from a couple athletes that we did comfort testing with, and they were very happy with the results. They mentioned that it doesn't really interfere with their motion, which is again really important, because when you're an athlete, you want to focus on what you're doing, not what you're wearing. And that's also because we have like such a small form factor. It's a stretchable sensor, and it also just has like a little electronics hub. So they couldn't really feel it. And that was a really good finding for us, because now we're even more confident that our solution can actually make it to the next level where it's broadly adopted by athletes.
Perfect. So let's shift gears a little bit. I want to hear more about Organic Robotics, the business, right? The team. What has been helpful for you in driving your business forward? I know you were involved with the NFL in terms of winning the First and Future, but there's been other milestones along your path. So what's really been helpful for driving you forward?
What really allowed us to become a company was Luminate from NextCorps, and that we had a result from my research lab. I'm a professor at Cornell on stretchable photonic sensors, and then this opportunity came up for an accelerator on photonics, and we applied with a dream, and the judges thought it had potential, and then brought us in, and then brought us through the stuff I have no idea about in terms of like incorporation and raising money and hiring and management and all that other stuff. And we translated that initial investment of $100,000 into NSF SBIR and phase one, which Ilayda, she did it, and that's she's running the company now, which is a big deal for us. I think the first, is Luminate for getting us around. The second is Ilayda for leading the company, and then the third is the NSF SBIR phase one, which has allowed us to continue developing our product and get it in field now. Our first in-field testing is being done today, I think, or if not very soon this week. Then the next couple of goals is further fundraising and development to allow us to scale up the manufacturing, increase the reliability, get the form factor lifetime, and make the user interface frictionless. That's what the next step is for us.
A lot of exciting steps, a lot of activity over the last few years. So congratulations to your team. And it sounds like you found a fantastic fit in Ilayda. So any advice for other startups? Maybe there's a team out there who's just getting started. Maybe they just have their founders and an idea, but what would your advice be for them to help take their business forward?
I think one thing that really helped us was going through iCore and doing customer discovery, because to be honest, I don't know a lot about baseball, nor the injuries they go through or the problems they face on an everyday basis. But going through that program really helped me understand both the problems athletes are facing in the US, as well as the solutions they have tried and the need, like what we would need to make this work for them, because it's not about just solving the problem, but it's also solving it in a way that they would be okay with adopting in their everyday lives. So that really helped. And now when we talk to potential customers, we can actually talk their language instead of just gibberish. So I would say that's a good start, because you might also decide maybe that specific market is not where you're going for at this time. And then the other thing is obviously the team. It takes a lot of people coming and going to figure out the perfect team, just because not everyone's fit for everything. So those two would be my advice. Focus on the team and the customer and the market.
So we're at the point in the podcast where we ask our favorite question, which is looking ahead. So fast forward 5 years, 10 years, where do you hope Organic Robotics Corporation is in the future?
I think in the short term, where we see ourselves is working with one of the leading sportswear brands in the world and having them use our sensors and provide actionable data for trainers and coaches worldwide. And, you know, maybe one day watching a game and seeing all these like baseball players and football players wearing our product and getting some benefit from it. But our long-term goal is, like I briefly mentioned earlier, is having light lace fibers in many different markets and making an impact in the world through all of these small and large markets.
Well, thank you, Rob and Ilayda, for joining us. And thanks to our audience for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe. We put out new Forward Faster episodes every week. See you next time.